The forest is alive, not with birdsong, not with wind, but with weight. Each step lands like distant thunder, measured, deliberate, final. Ferns tremble, insects fall silent. Somewhere in the dense undergrowth, a 300-pound herbivore freezes, heart pounding against fragile ribs. Then it appears. A silhouette taller than a 2-story building, muscles rolling beneath scaled skin. A skull the size of a bathtub, teeth like railroad spikes catching slivers of sunlight through the canopy. Tyrannosaurus rex. For more than a century, we've imagined this animal as the ultimate prehistoric nightmare, a scaly, roaring monster, pure instinct, pure violence, the uncontested tyrant of a savage world. We picture it sprinting at highway speeds. We hear a deafening roar. We see a reptilian dragon ruling a primitive Earth. It feels certain, obvious, almost mythic. But certainty can be deceptive. Because the real Tyrannosaurus rex, the one reconstructed from bone microstructure, CT scans, biomechanical simulations, and evolutionary genetics, doesn't quite match the creature in our imagination. What if it didn't roar the way we think? What if it wasn't built for sprinting? What if its skin wasn't entirely scaly? What if, biologically, it was closer to a bird than a lizard? In laboratories and museum basements, scientists have been quietly dismantling the legend, bone by bone, cell by cell. And the picture emerging isn't smaller. It's stranger, more precise, more sophisticated, more alive. Because Tyrannosaurus rex wasn't a dragon. It wasn't an evolutionary mistake. And it certainly wasn't just a monster. It was something far more unexpected, an evolutionary experiment at the edge of possibility. And once you see it clearly, you can't unsee it.
For more than a century, Tyrannosaurus rex has stood as the undisputed icon of prehistoric power. Its very name, Tyrant Lizard King, carries an air of dominance, as if the animal were crowned by evolution itself. The story began in 1902 in the rugged Badlands of Montana, when fossil hunter Barnum Brown uncovered a massive skeleton weathering out of ancient rock. When paleontologist Henry Fairfield Osborn formally described and named the species a few years later, the world was introduced to something enormous, something unprecedented. Newspapers sensationalized it, museums rushed to mount it, and almost immediately, an image began to crystallize. Early 20th century scientists reconstructed T-Rex as a towering, upright reptile. Its tail dragged along the ground, its body leaned back like a giant kangaroo. The posture reflected the scientific assumptions of the time. Dinosaurs were cold-blooded, slow-moving reptiles, evolutionary relics that had grown too large and too sluggish to survive. That interpretation fit neatly into the cultural mindset of the era. This was a time when extinction was often framed as a moral lesson in overreach. Massive size suggested evolutionary excess. The bigger the animal, the more inevitable its downfall seemed. As decades passed, the image hardened. Museum halls displayed looming skeletons in stiff, dramatic poses. Children grew up staring into cavernous eye sockets. By the mid-20th century, film cemented the myth. Stop-motion dinosaurs stomped across cinema screens, roaring and thrashing, embodiments of primal terror. Later, blockbuster portrayals would refine the monster, but rarely question it. T-Rex became shorthand for raw, prehistoric brutality. But beneath the spectacle, questions were beginning to form. In the 1960s and 70s, a wave of new paleontological research, often called the dinosaur renaissance, challenged the old reptilian narrative. Fossil evidence suggested that many dinosaurs were more active than previously believed. Bone structures hinted at faster growth rates. Posture reconstructions shifted from tail dragging to horizontal balance.
And if smaller dinosaurs were agile, warm, and dynamic, what did that imply for the largest predator of them all? The paradox was unsettling. How could a 7-ton carnivore be both massive and active? How could a creature so enormous grow so quickly? And why did its anatomy, upon closer inspection, resemble birds more than modern reptiles? The Tyrant King was no longer a simple monster. It was becoming a scientific mystery, and the deeper researchers looked, the less certain the old story seemed.
To rebuild Tyrannosaurus rex as it truly was, scientists had to move beyond the silhouette and into the mechanics of the animal itself, into bone density, muscle attachment scars, microscopic growth rings, and digital simulations measured in newtons and milliseconds. The skull was the first revelation. Using high-resolution CT scans and engineering techniques known as finite element analysis, researchers modeled how stress traveled through the T-Rex skull during a bite. The results were staggering. Estimates suggest a bite force exceeding 30,000 newtons, strong enough to crush bone on contact. But what mattered wasn't just strength, it was structure. The skull was reinforced with interlocking bones and sinus cavities that redistributed force, preventing catastrophic fracture. The teeth were thick and serrated, shaped not merely for slicing flesh, but for puncturing and pulverizing bone. This was not the anatomy of a reckless slasher. It was a precision instrument designed to extract maximum nutrition from a carcass. Then came the senses. CT imaging of fossil skulls revealed enlarged optic lobes and forward-facing eyes, indicating strong binocular vision and depth perception. The olfactory bulbs were massive, suggesting an acute sense of smell, possibly capable of detecting prey or carrion over long distances. Even the inner ear structure hinted at sensitivity to low-frequency sound, implying a world experienced through vibrations as much as sight. This was a predator built not just on force, but on perception. Locomotion told another story. Early theories imagined T-Rex sprinting at extreme speeds, but modern biomechanical modeling, factoring in muscle mass and skeletal stress limits, paints a more restrained picture. At roughly 7 to 8 tons, the animal was likely incapable of sustained high-speed running. Instead, it appears optimized for powerful, energy-efficient movement, capable of quick bursts but not marathon chases. And then there was growth. Thin slices of fossilized bone, examined under microscopes, revealed growth rings similar to those in trees. These rings showed that adolescent T-Rex individuals grew at astonishing rates, gaining substantial mass each year. Such rapid growth suggests a metabolism more active than that of modern reptiles, possibly a form of mesothermy, a metabolic state between cold and warm-blooded. The deeper scientists looked, the clearer it became. Tyrannosaurus rex was not a sluggish reptile. It was a biologically sophisticated giant, engineered by evolution with efficiency, sensory acuity, and metabolic power. The monster was dissolving. In its place stood something far more intricate. Tyrannosaurus rex did not choose its image. We did. From the moment its skeleton first rose inside museum halls in the early 20th century, it was framed not just as an animal, but as a symbol, a towering relic from a savage age, a warning from deep time, a creature so immense it seemed almost mythological. But the image we built says as much about us as it does about the fossil record. When early paleontologists reconstructed T-Rex, they worked within the scientific assumptions of their era. Dinosaurs were categorized alongside modern reptiles, cold-blooded, slow, and evolutionarily conservative. Without evidence of feathers, without advanced imaging technology, without biomechanical modeling, researchers filled in gaps using the closest living analogs they knew, crocodiles and lizards. The result was inevitable: an upright, tail-dragging reptile, heavy, lumbering, primitive. That image aligned neatly with broader cultural narratives of the early 1900s. This was an age fascinated by industrial power and anxious about collapse. Extinction was often framed as a consequence of excess. Massive creatures that had overgrown their environment seemed like natural cautionary tales. T-Rex, with its size and teeth, became the embodiment of nature's overreach. And once an image takes hold, it is difficult to dislodge. Museums reinforced it. Massive skeletons were mounted in dramatic, almost theatrical poses, jaws open, arms frozen mid-swipe.
Visitors looked up at these displays from below, amplifying the sense of intimidation. Children internalized the posture, illustrators copied it, textbooks replicated it. Then came cinema. From early stop-motion animation in the 1920s to late 20th century blockbusters, filmmakers leaned into the terror. A roaring predator stalking helpless prey is a powerful narrative device. It requires no translation. It taps directly into primal fear. The dinosaur became a monster because monsters are memorable. But film does not operate under the same constraints as peer-reviewed science. Sound designers crafted roars by blending elephant trumpets, lion growls, and mechanical distortion. Skin textures were scaled and reptilian because that's what audiences expected. Speed was exaggerated for suspense. Behavior was simplified for clarity. The cultural T-Rex solidified. Even as paleontology evolved quietly in academic journals, public perception lagged behind. In the 1960s and 70s, the so-called dinosaur renaissance began reshaping scientific understanding. Researchers proposed that many dinosaurs were active, dynamic animals with higher metabolisms than previously assumed. Fossilized trackways suggested coordinated movement. Bone histology revealed rapid growth rates. Skeletal reconstructions shifted posture from tail dragging to horizontally balanced. The image was changing inside laboratories, but outside them, the old tyrant persisted. Part of the challenge lies in how humans process scale. We instinctively associate size with aggression. Large predators in modern ecosystems, lions, bears, crocodiles, command respect and fear. When confronted with an animal the size of a bus, our imagination defaults to danger. It is difficult to view something so immense as nuanced. Yet ecosystems are rarely defined by single monsters. They are defined by relationships. By the late Cretaceous, roughly 68 million years ago, North America was not a wasteland ruled by a lone tyrant. It was a complex environment of river systems, coastal plains, flowering plants, insects, small mammals, and diverse dinosaur species. T-Rex occupied the apex of that system, but it was not its entirety. Fossil evidence suggested it interacted with its environment in varied ways, hunting, scavenging, competing, perhaps even engaging in social behaviors we are only beginning to infer. Bite marks on conspecific bones indicate encounters with other T-Rex individuals. Healed injuries revealed survival after trauma. Growth patterns show a long juvenile phase before reaching full size. This was not a mindless engine of destruction. It was an organism navigating pressures, competition, climate variation, resource distribution, like any other species. Why then do we cling to the monster? Because monsters are simple. They offer clear narratives, dominance and downfall, power and extinction. But real biology resists simplicity. In recent decades, new fossil discoveries in China revealed feathered theropods closely related to Tyrannosaurs. Advanced CT scanning illuminated internal structures once invisible. Digital modeling allowed scientists to simulate muscle dynamics and bite stress with engineering precision. Chemical analyses of fossilized tissues provided clues about metabolism. Each new technique chipped away at the caricature. The more data accumulated, the less dragon-like T-Rex appeared. And yet, public imagery remains slow to adapt. This disconnect highlights something fundamental about science communication. Knowledge does not spread evenly. It competes with entrenched mental models. When an idea becomes iconic, updating it requires more than evidence. It requires cultural calibration. Tyrannosaurus rex is not just a fossil species. It is a brand, a logo of prehistory. It appears on toys, clothing, sports mascots, and corporate logos. Its silhouette is instantly recognizable worldwide. Changing that image feels in some ways like altering a myth. But science is not concerned with preserving myth. It is concerned with refining accuracy. As we peel back the layers, removing tail-dragging posture, reconsidering metabolic assumptions, exploring the possibility of feathered juveniles, we are not diminishing T-Rex. We are humanizing it. Or perhaps more accurately, we are animalizing it. Stripping away projection, removing exaggeration, allowing it to exist as it was, a product of evolutionary pressures, neither villain nor legend. And in doing so, we confront a subtle realization. Our understanding of the past is always provisional. It reflects the tools we possess, the biases we carry, and the stories we prefer to tell. Tyrannosaurus rex did not change. We did. The bones were always there, locked in stone. What changed was our ability and willingness to see them differently. And as we continue refining the image of the Tyrant King, we are reminded that science is not a static monument. It is a process. A gradual correction of perspective. A willingness to admit that even the most iconic creature in Earth's history can be misunderstood, especially by us.
By the time paleontologists had reconstructed Tyrannosaurus rex from hundreds of bones, scanned skulls, and analyzed growth patterns, a startling truth had emerged. The creature we had long imagined as a monstrous dragon was something far more nuanced, far more extraordinary. T-Rex was not merely a predator, it was an evolutionary marvel. Its jaw, capable of exerting more than 30,000 newtons of force, was not designed for indiscriminate violence. The teeth, thick, serrated, and conical, functioned like precision tools, optimized to extract every bit of nutrition from bone and flesh. Fossilized prey with punctured and crushed bones tell a story not of brute recklessness, but of ecological efficiency. The animal was a recycler of nutrients in its ecosystem, a living mechanism of survival perfected over millions of years. Sensory evidence reveals a creature designed for awareness and strategy. Large forward-facing eyes gave it sharp binocular vision, superior in depth perception to most modern predators. Its enormous olfactory bulbs suggest a keen sense of smell, capable of tracking prey or carrion over vast distances. Even its inner ear, attuned to low-frequency vibrations, may have allowed communication or environmental awareness far beyond what we would expect in a reptilian predator. T-Rex experienced its world not just visually, but acoustically and chemically, navigating the late Cretaceous landscape with precision and intelligence. Its locomotion, often misunderstood, was equally remarkable. While popular culture imagined it as a sprinter chasing down prey at highway speeds, biomechanical modeling indicates a more measured, energy-efficient gait. At 7 to 8 tons, T-Rex could not sprint indefinitely. Instead, it relied on strategic movement, ambush, and a combination of bursts and steady strides to dominate its environment. Speed was less important than endurance, perception, and anatomical optimization. The skeleton itself reveals a metabolism unlike that of modern reptiles. Growth rings in fossilized bones indicate rapid juvenile growth, consistent with mesothermy, a metabolic state between cold-blooded reptiles and warm-blooded birds or mammals. T-Rex grew quickly, consumed massive quantities of food, and maintained the energy necessary to sustain a powerful, highly active body. The iconic small arms, once dismissed as vestigial, were heavily muscled and likely functional, used for gripping prey, aiding movement, or even in intraspecific interaction. Perhaps most astonishing is the connection to birds. Close relatives like Tyrannus bore feathers, and evolutionary lineage places T-Rex firmly among Coelurosaurs. Juveniles may have been partially feathered, gradually losing insulation as body mass increased. This reframes the predator not as a lizard-like monster, but as a giant ground-dwelling bird in its own right. In short, T-Rex was not a monster. It was not a mindless engine of destruction. It was a creature shaped by evolution with surgical precision, powerful, perceptive, fast-growing, energetically efficient, and ecologically indispensable. Its dominance was the product of adaptation, not brute force. Its eventual extinction was not failure, but a sudden environmental reset, the asteroid impact that reshaped the planet. And yet, in its disappearance, life endured. Birds are living echoes of the tyrant king, evidence that survival is about adaptability, not sheer size. T-Rex reminds us that evolution favors innovation over intimidation. The real Tyrannosaurus rex was never a myth. It was a lesson written in bone, muscle, and metabolism. It was not a dragon. It was a masterwork of nature, an apex predator perfected for its time, and a creature that continues to reshape how we understand life itself.
The forest is quiet now. No footsteps thunder through the undergrowth. No massive tail shakes the earth. The ferns sway gently, stirred only by wind. And yet, if you close your eyes, you can almost feel it. A presence that once dominated the land. Immense, precise, alive. Tyrannosaurus rex was never a fantasy, never a creature of imagination. It was real. It breathed. It hunted. It survived and thrived in a world utterly alien to us. But the story of T-Rex is more than the story of a single species. It is a story about perspective. For more than a century, we framed it through our fears, our myths, our limitations. We imagined monsters because we needed clear narratives, dominance, terror, and spectacle. We saw it as a tyrant because our minds sought simplicity. But evolution does not work in narratives. It works in solutions, in efficiency, in adaptations finely tuned to the pressures of environment, climate, and survival. Every bone, every tooth, every trace of metabolism tells a story of refinement. T-Rex grew quickly. It sensed acutely. It moved strategically. It crushed bone not for pleasure, but for sustenance. It was neither cruel nor careless. It was optimized. And in this optimization, we glimpse a principle that transcends time. Survival is about balance, adaptability, and function, not size alone. And yet, the asteroid struck. In an instant, measured not in years but in seconds, a world was transformed. T-Rex vanished, along with countless others. Yet life endured. Birds survived. Tiny, feathered descendants of the tyrant king persisted. The world continued, reshaped, and reminded us that even the most dominant cannot defy change. Power is temporary. Dominance is conditional. And what seems invincible today may become history tomorrow. When you look at a modern bird or hear its song at dawn, remember this: evolution never forgets. Every creature carries echoes of its ancestors. The legacy of T-Rex is not fear, it is adaptation. It is resilience. It is the reminder that life finds a way, often in forms we do not expect. Tyrannosaurus rex teaches us humility. It reminds us that the past is more complex than we imagine, that legends are often built on human interpretation, and that truth, once revealed, is richer and more extraordinary than myth. The king of dinosaurs did not know it was a king. It did not know it would inspire awe millions of years later. It was simply living, thriving, evolving. And in studying it, we are not just uncovering the past, we are learning how to see the world more clearly, how to understand life in all its extraordinary complexity, and how to recognize that even the mightiest among us are, in the end, part of something far larger than ourselves.